Good morning, everyone. This is State Climatologist Gary McManus with your Mesonet weather report. Well, it's been 3 or 4 weeks since I've gotten to speak to you, and as usual, some things have changed for the good and some things have changed for the bad. And a lot of it is dealing with drought. Let's get right to that new drought monitor map. Well, we do have a good picture for the southeastern half of the state and also up in the north central Oklahoma, where we have largely moderate drought, just a little bit of severe over there in the east central Oklahoma, and actually a lot more of that abnormally dry D0 yellow condition, which isn't drought. So that's good news for the southeastern half of north central. Unfortunately, you see a lot of that red is expanded across the Oklahoma Panhandle and western Oklahoma and still up into central Oklahoma. So unfortunately that tracks a lot with the Oklahoma wheat belt. Just a hard time as the drought has expanded across the western half or so of the state, and especially in the Oklahoma Panhandle. As you can see from the consecutive days with less than a quarter inch of rainfall map from the Oklahoma Mesonet, we're now working on just about another 3-week dry spell across much of western and central Oklahoma. And as you go out into the Panhandle region, as many as 2 months and all the way back to November in some cases for Texas County. So another dry spell that was certainly not welcome and not helping anything for the drought conditions. Now, a lot of this has been driven by the spring rainfall, or lack thereof, of course. We can take a look at that spring rainfall on the Mesonet map, at least so far through May 6th, and we can see some pretty good rains down across, again, that southeastern half of the state up into north central Oklahoma, but way too much of that green and blue color up in the northwestern part of the state, down into southwestern Oklahoma. In fact, parts of Texas County have had less than a quarter inch of rainfall during that entire spring period, so not good news for this part of the state. Now, when we take a look at the deficit map or the surplus map for this same time frame, we can see again the same pattern showing those deficits across southwest up through central Oklahoma and northwest Oklahoma in the Panhandle. Basically 2 to as many as 4.5 inches below normal for that time frame, whereas you got this where you have the surpluses across southeastern Oklahoma, except down in far southeast Oklahoma where McCurtain County also dealing with some pretty big deficits. Another look at that is on the percent of normal rainfall map, where this shows up a lot better, where those areas have been drastically dry across the northwestern portions of the state. Again, most of the Panhandle less than 25% of normal since spring began, and other parts of western Oklahoma not much better off. So really bad news for that part of the state, unfortunately. Well, the impacts from this dry weather and the drought are pretty obvious as we look at the relative greenness map. This is looking down from space at basically the greenness of the vegetation. We can see across, again, the southeastern half of the state up into north central Oklahoma. Pretty green for this time of year, not too bad. It could be better, of course, but not too bad. Okay, let's take a look at the outlook for next week. This is a risk map from the Climate Prediction Center combined with the risk of extreme heat and high winds, and that's exactly what we see for the western half of the state and the Panhandle. I have superimposed the drought monitor map on this other map where you can see that risk of extreme heat and high winds is coinciding almost perfectly with the worst of the drought across western Oklahoma and the Panhandle. So not good news once again for the drought, and those high winds and that extreme heat would probably be at the end of next week. So hopefully we'll see a pattern change after that and maybe get some wetter weather in here. Okay, now for the good news. We are heading into the wettest part of the year for Oklahoma, at least for most of the state, and that's from about mid-May through mid-June, so still a lot of time to get a lot of relief in here. Let's get that rainfall flowing and get some of this drought kicked out. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.